Hi everybody. As Sharon said, I'm Lucy. I'm from Melbourne Anti-Intervention Collective. We're the group who puts on these rallies, and we've put on a series of forums as well, and we've been supporting the walk-off and other actions to oppose the Northern Territory intervention. One of the reasons that we decided to call this rally on this day, the 13th of February, is because it's, as other people have said, it's the anniversary of Rudd's apology to the stolen generations. When Rudd made that apology 3 years ago, there was a palpable feeling of relief among Indigenous and non-Indigenous people in the country. There was a feeling like this is the dawn of a new era, the beginning of a new relationship between Aboriginal people and the government. There was a sense among everybody as we watched on screens, in parks and at home and at work. I certainly felt like all of these people were feeling such a relief and such an excitement about the possibilities between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people. But the last 3 years have shown us that all of those people watching and feeling relieved and feeling that sense of connection with our Aboriginal history, in a sense that we can correct that, all of those people need to come out onto the streets and fight for that connection and fight for that new relationship and fight for a better relationship in this country in order for the racism in this country to be ended. Rudd and Macklin, like Howard and Bruff, told us that the intervention was about women and children, about housing, about solutions and closing the gap, but it never really ever took a genius to realise that was never the point about the intervention, and it was never ever going to work. Taking away power, taking away funding, stopping community programs, taking away power from local housing programs was never ever going to solve any of those problems. And every single report that the government has put out since the intervention has shown the truth behind what we've been saying all along, that it was never going to work, and it never has worked. Literacy rates have dropped, health rates have dropped, incarceration rates have been higher. The situation in the Northern Territory is really, really dire. And we know this. We've had speakers come down and tell us. It's in the newspapers. The ministers, Macklin herself knows this. It's a really, really dire situation. So if it's such a disaster, and it's been such a disaster, and everybody acknowledges that it's such a disaster, why is the Rudd government so gung-ho about it? Why are they following through with this policy? The answer to that question is in the sorry history of the Australian government's relationship to Aboriginal people in this history. And the answer is that the Australian government doesn't have any choice except to follow a blame the victim policy. The intervention has been a blame the victim policy from the start. It's about blaming the organisations that have been underfunded, defunded, disempowered since the 30s, since the 200 years of colonisation in this country. Those organisations and any inkling, any beginnings of self-determination have been trodden on and have been stomped out, as Bob Brandon said.
We can easily blame
the government says, when it's so embarrassed, when the international embarrassment comes through about this, the massive gap, the massively embarrassing gap between the life expectancies and the rates, the standard of living between Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people. The government's response is to attack those very organisations that it's been attacking all along, and to blame them for the problems, and to defund them, and to take away their power, as if it was their fault all along that these terrible things have been happening.
No justice. Atomic weapon.
This is why we need to fight the intervention, because there is nothing, the government will not do it alone. No matter how many times we say, or the government, or Jenny Macklin gets another report saying that it's a disaster, unless we're out in the streets, unless we're mobilising and bringing out every organisation that we can get in contact with to oppose the intervention, unless we make those alliances and come out on the streets, we're not going to be able to end the intervention. And the problem with the intervention is that it's expanding, and that it's growing, that it's becoming the new policy for Aboriginal, the new government policy on Aboriginal affairs right across the country. It's not isolated to the Northern Territory. It's definitely the sharp end of the Northern Territory, but it's becoming the program right across the country. So we can see things like in Smith Street, the language of prescribed areas and alcohol bans seamlessly runs from the Northern Territory right down here to Smith Street. It's not it's not a coincidence. This is because the attacks in the Northern Territory are making it far easier, right across the country, to attack Aboriginal people and to be racist. And this is why we need to get out there, and this is enough. We need to grow this movement. It needs to be far bigger than this, and we need to be coming out every year, every anniversary of the apology, every anniversary of the implementation of the Northern Territory intervention, and come out until we shut it down, until we stop the intervention once and for all.